confrontations have been between whites and blacks. At least that's what a lot of people believed. But people of other ethnic groups are also the victims of hateful comments.
One young Arab woman told us about an incident that happened to her as she shopped at a local store during the 4th of July holiday weekend.
We walk in and all I turn around and I see someone screaming stupid. Didn't think they were talking to us, so I turn around and they're like, stupid again. I'm like, excuse me? She's like, you're in the United States of America. Take that damn towel off of your head. It's like, you turn around and we're like, exactly, ma'am. We are in the United States of America. A couple other people start walking towards her and they're screaming terrorist and take that towel off of your head. We pretty much just turned around and walked right at them waiters and just left.
Now, of course, this woman walked away, but is there something she could have done, or was this the best solution? Has anyone in this room experienced something similar?
I'll start over on this side with Leon, first of all.
You know, most incidences of discrimination or racism aren't that blatant. Most of the time you don't even know, I suspect, when you've been discriminated against or when you've been denied an opportunity because of your race or people have treated you differently. I can only think of very limited instances where I feel that I suspect I was treated differently based on my race, going to a restaurant in my 20s in Pontiac with a group of young white friends, and it was a black restaurant, or at least had black staff, and not being served in any way. That's incredibly unusual, I think, for me, in my experience. I'm sure it's different for people who are perceived as minority groups.
All right.
Maha, let's talk to you because, you know, we've done so many stories in the news about hijabs. This, you know, I mean, it's not appropriate to call it a towel, but, I mean, she was definitely discriminated against, and those were hateful comments. Was she right in just walking away, or?
I think that she should have stood up, however. I will share a story about myself because when you are in the middle of it, especially if you're an immigrant, you may have wished that you could have done something different than what you did when you were faced with a particular act. You know, after September 11, my youngest son was in first grade, and he went to a private school. I had a phone call. It was like couple of days after September 11 by his teacher. I was half asleep. It was 9:30 maybe, and she knows us very well. She went to school with my husband, and she said, I want to give you some heads up. Omar has been talking in the playground, so he's been saying that he knows how to do a bomb and that he can blow up the entire neighborhood. And the kids, one of the kids went and told the parent, and the parent came to the administration of the school, and she was preparing us, so just in case somebody talked to us. And the way I dealt with it, I'm the immigrant here, I was defensive. I was like, I wanted to prove to her that, you know, I don't know where he's coming with this from, like we are not like that. I really thought that they will come and take us that night to Guantanamo. I was so scared, while my husband, who grew up in this country, came in and I told him what happened, and he said, why are you go back to sleep? I mean, it's all the stupid cartoons he's watching. Let somebody tell me I'm not American enough. And that was an eye-opener for me. The way I dealt with it, the way I was defensive about it, it was totally different than the way my husband dealt with it. And that brings how immigrants may deal with the situation.
Gotcha.
Rochelle?
Oh, thank you, because I was ready.
I saw that.
My American dream is to live in the sort of innocence and lack of hatred that Leon does. When you can say, you know, that's not something that's a part of my life, or I don't really experience a lot of that. That is what my hope is for my children, for my children's children, and their children and their children. God, that would be awesome. But I can tell you that two things happen for me. Well, actually, it happens all the time. Every single time there's a crime, somebody asks me, oh, do you know them? Or, oh, is that somebody we know? Oh, yeah. Am I wrong? I mean, this happens. But the other thing is, 7 years ago, I decided to change my hair. And I said, I'm not going to do the chemical sort of thing, you know, this is what I look like without all of the stuff. And you would be amazed by the reaction. Black people, not all of them, some of them, called and said, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you doing something to your hair?
We're looking at a picture of the way you were before and the way you are now.
I had this sort of, what I called it a school teacher bouffant, you know, when I got here, this sort of, and I look like my mom. Well, when I started to look like me, black women particularly would call the paper and say, don't do that, you have got to go back and do your hair. White people would treat me like I was somebody different, like I'd walk in a store and all of a sudden I was more African than American.
Because you had braids.
Of the, it was amazing to me. And I think that part of it is we literally are looking at people and assuming who they are instead of trying to get to know people.
Exactly.
Well, 20 years ago I arrived here as a student, and I had an accent. I still have an accent, but so...
No, you
Thank you. So, I mean, whenever I have to get service, or when I go to the store, I felt I was ignored, because and then they keep questioning to me, even though they understand what I'm talking about. They keep asking what
did you say? What did you say?
Yeah. So they got me really discouraged. So, and so some people just grab their nose because I smell something. I mean, they smell something from me, or that was the experience that I had. So, to survive that environment, even in Ann Arbor situation, I try to wear nicer. And I didn't use any perfume in Korea, but I use perfume here in America to not be offensive to anybody near me.
So
Was
to
that the
fit
right
in.
thing to do, though?
Right.
So to fit in.
Yeah. So I was trying to adapt myself.
But should you have, or should you have just gone about being who you are?
Yeah, I mean, but still, I respect the etiquette you have. I mean, the social system you have, not trying to be stand out, but I just want to learn the American style.
I understand.
That's what the immigrants are going through.
All right, we're going to ask you guys to pause here in the studio because we're going to toss it up to Joanne.
I've been watching a little of the stream here on Twitter here, Joanne. I know people are weighing in.
Yeah, they really are. They've got so many opinions about some of what the panelists are saying. And just about race and issue, I found it interesting if we look at our conversation going on the Detroit2020.com website right now. We had a Sassy Wing, and I'm so tired of the race issue, she says. People are people. Skin color, shape of eyes has nothing to do with being a good person or with being a, I believe it's a jerk there with a typo. The next one, a comment was, in a perfect world, skin color would not be an issue, but of course, we do not live in a perfect world, and of course, that's why we're having the conversation we are tonight. A little bit earlier, we asked you the poll question that we had, and it was, have you yourself experienced racism? Got a couple poll questions going, but regarding that one, the results so far, 84% of the people who have weighed in said that indeed they have experienced some form of racism. Only 16% tonight weighing in said they have not. Want to ask our next interactive poll question to you that you can also find on the Detroit 2020 website as well right now. What group do you think experiences the most racism? Again, you can weigh in. We've got Asian, Black, White, Arab, or Hispanic, and getting a wide variety of answers there, but we'll give you the results to those coming up in just a few minutes. We're also getting a lot of questions coming in, as we told you earlier, some emails and some comments, and I wanted to share this one. Nancy wrote to us from South Lyon, and she sent us this question. I don't understand how the blacks get away with having black schools and black organizations, but it's not right for the whites to have their own. Why do we have to have segregated anything in this day and age? I throw it down to the panel to take a shot at that one.
Leon, you want to tackle that one first?
I think I agree with Rochelle. We want to get to a place in our culture where, in our society, where we don't have segregated things. And I think it is, I hope that we're moving quickly past the time where we feel that we've got to have segregated things. And we could just move into a world where we don't have, you know, a black this, a Hispanic that, a white this, a white restaurant, a black restaurant. We just have individuals that
Ozzy, is this possible?
Well, I talk from being a light-skinned Puerto Rican with African heritage, and I see the impact this had on my darker-skinned relatives. And because I'm light-skinned, a lot of people assume I'm white. I hear all kinds of things. And from an early age, I was real sensitive to the issue of race, because my uncle, who was only 9 years older than me, lived with us, and he was dark-skinned, black in all kind of contexts. And I saw him go through a number of incidents that were definitely racial based. And when I was 12 years old, he told me, I'm going back to the island of Puerto Rico, and I felt like I was losing my big brother. And he says, you're white, I'm black, I can't live here.
Wow.
Rochelle, real quickly, because we need a quick response here, but I mean, the NAACP, it was started more than 100 years ago. I mean, have we reached a time when we don't need African-American organizations when before we had nowhere else to go?
People ignore the history. The NAACP was founded because black people were being lynched.
Exactly.
Fraternities and sororities were founded because black people couldn't be in the fraternities and sororities that existed. When things get better, you don't throw away your history. So they're not bad because they're separate.
But can you see that there are people who think that is divisive, that it's not inclusive?
It's only divisive if they don't remember that there's a Daughters of the American Revolution, or there are other groups.
We
John
can
Birch
remember and change at the same time.
Yeah.
Just because it was part of our history doesn't mean we should hold on to it.
But
sometimes it's time to move on.
But the question was, why do blacks have their own organizations, their own school boards? Whites do too. If we're living in a segregated society, if there's a totally black system, guess what? There's a totally white system. So whites have it too. What's at the bottom of it? What is the issue? So you point to blacks or Latins because they're segregated, it means they were segregated from the rest of society. You can't have one without the other.
Right.
As you can see, we have a lot to talk about, and we're not done yet.
Certainly not. Up next, we'll be talking about President Obama, why some believe his presidency has created even more racism here in America.
We'll be right back.